I'm going to talk about a very interesting Bible interpretation that very few Christians know about, and it relates to a very important verse about Jesus not knowing the hour of his return. Now, I actually hadn't heard of this interpretation until recently, and this particular interpretation suggests that Jesus actually did know the hour. So we'll have a look at this verse and then we'll have a look at this interpretation. So in Mark chapter 13:32, Jesus says, "But concerning that day or that hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father." Before we have a look at this interpretation, let's have a look at the traditional interpretation that most Christians hold to. So Christians believe that Jesus was both fully God and fully man, and that in his incarnation, he accepted certain human limitations. So for example, the Bible says that he was hungry. It says that he was fatigued. It said that he grew in knowledge. So what people will say is that in terms of not knowing the hour, Jesus didn't know the hour in his human consciousness. He didn't display all of his divine attributes. He didn't access all of his divine knowledge. He never became less God. But in his human consciousness, in his incarnation, he didn't know the hour because he chose not to access that divine knowledge. So that's the traditional interpretation. That's what I've always held to. But recently I heard another interpretation which was actually really interesting, and I'm going to go over this with you now. So people have said that the Greek word for know can also mean to make known or to reveal, not necessarily being limited to possessing knowledge about something. So what this verse is saying, they will say, is that Jesus chose not to reveal or to make known the hour, that it wasn't his role to make known the hour of his return, even though he knew the hour. And a passage that they'll use, one verse to support this, is in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 2. This is Paul speaking, and he's saying, "For I decided to know nothing among you except Christ and him crucified." Paul obviously knew other things than Christ crucified. He possessed other knowledge than simply Christ crucified. But he decided to know nothing among them except Christ crucified, meaning that he chose to reveal Christ crucified as the emphasis of what he was preaching and teaching them. And people will then take this and say that this is what Jesus is talking about, that he knew the hour, but he chose not to reveal the hour. So my thoughts on this, I think it's interesting, but I'm not fully convinced of this second interpretation because the plain reading of the text is to know, even if it's possible that the word can mean something else. The word knows comes from a Greek word which very clearly means to know, to perceive, to be aware of, to understand. It almost always means to have knowledge, not to reveal knowledge. And there are actually other Greek words for reveal, but the writer chooses not to use them here when communicating what Jesus said. So I would be interested to get your thoughts. Have you heard this second interpretation? And which of these two interpretations do you find to be most convincing? And do you have any other thoughts? Leave your comments below and I'll talk to you soon. God bless you, friends.